Hey there, so I'm going to show you how to do what I call a Bass Pro letter. So I have this color already mixed up. It's really just an off-white, as you can kind of see right here. Bass Pro, it's always off-white, dirty, scuffed up in some way. So I had already projected this on here, so I'm going to skip out the whole how you should measure out a letter and the spacing and all the details. That'll be for another lesson because there's so many things that go into just what a letter should be. So I'm going to show you really just how to paint a letter and then how we're going to make it look aged or antique looking. So at first you start out with just the one color top coat, and here we're not gonna age it at all. We're just gonna paint it like it's gonna be perfect. And that's really important in that if you try to age it early on, it just doesn't look as good as if you age it afterwards. So I chose this brush because this is the exact length that I want the thickest parts of my letter to be. And so you really want to pick a brush that's going to work for you and not against you. And so notice how I can just run my brush right along there, and that's the thickness of the letter. So really you're just doing yourself a favor and making it a lot easier. So really it's just about straight lines. And so with this kind of a letter, they're really forgiving. So if it's not completely perfect, it's okay. This is not a letter that you have to stress out about that over, because we're going to end up sanding it later and making it look very imperfect. So if one side's a little off than the other, don't worry about it, because you can just sand that side a little bit more later on. And then, so the N is a really great example for what really makes a letter is the thickness and the thinness of it. So notice how this is really thick and then this is really thin. So if you mess up, you're not going to want to just make this little thin line thicker because you messed up. You just want to go and erase it, because keeping it really thin like this really just gives the letter a lot of character, and it keeps it from being a bubble letter essentially. And you can get a smaller brush if you want to do this, if you're more comfortable with that. I'm just going to do it with a bigger brush just to save time, and because I've done this for so many years, really. And now I'm going to show you just a little up close version of this, which is, again, I'm just using the big part of my brush to make the line. And then we're going to take these serifs up here and just kind of point them out a little bit with your brush, bring it back in and connect it down. So these are just little parts that just stick out. And it doesn't have to be completely straight up at the top. It can kind of curve out and under. And then remember, we're going to come over here and we're just going to, so I know this kind of goes kind of like a V. This is a V, but you want to think about this as just one line. So you're going to get paint on your brush and you're just going to make one straight line, not even picking up your brush all the way down. You're going to follow that. So I'm just going to bring in a little brush just to show you. If you're more comfortable using a small brush, don't be afraid to just switch back and forth. You can use these small brushes to do the serifs up top. Really just poking it out like that. And then use the small brush to just make that line. So we actually want it a little bit bigger than that. But notice just the difference between that line and that line. This one's almost like 3 times as big, and just even carrying it through. So taking your brush up and just carrying it through to make sure that is very straight. Like notice how all of these I just kind of swoop down. All of them just have a little bit of a swoop on them and come back up. Come down. Okay, so now that we did the white base coat, we're going to do the drop shadow. And I mixed together just this really brown color and put it in a bottle so it doesn't dry out. And put just a little bit on this lid, and again, you're just using a brush as your guide. As you can see, I did this one right here, and it's just about an inch worth of a drop shadow, so I'm just going to do a couple as an example. So you're going to want to do a drop shadow on the bottom right. Yeah, so the bottom right of every letter. So the O is a little tricky, but you kind of just start here and use your brush to take the shape with you. So I'm just starting with the brush at the same angle, and as you go around the O, you don't move it in your hand at all. You use the brush to your advantage, and to where when it gets all the way over here, it's 1 inch. And you just kind of slowly lift up on the left side as you go down. That way it just gives it a drop shadow like that. And then you're going to do the same thing on this side. Just keep the brush at a steady angle. Okay, so now we're going to take some of this drop shadow color and we're going to mix some water in it and dab the dirty rag in it, and we're going to just dab all along here. And just really, we're just trying to dirty up our white. We're making it just not so perfect anymore. And so I'm just dabbing it on there and just making it look kind of stained. And then in some areas it's going to be more stained than others. So like right here versus right here. And we're just going to go do that just ever so lightly, just a little bit to all of the letters. Just to make them look like you rubbed dirt on them or something. Okay, so now that we've dirtied up all the white, we're going to take some sandpaper and just rub the sandpaper in the direction the wood is going. And just kind of see what happens. So see how it just takes up right here. So since it did it right there, you're going to want to just concentrate in certain areas and then not in other areas. So I might leave that a bit white, leave that clean, and then concentrate down here just to give it a little variation. Just go over here, kind of go with the wood with a little bit of force. We just want to give it just a little bit of character, not a whole lot like that. That's kind of a whole lot, but that's okay. Kind of see right here how it just takes it up. It's really just bringing the wood through as if it were to be aged on its own. So like right here, I might concentrate right there and leave the rest. Like that. And that's it. Now we have some aged lettering.